Welcome to another exciting episode of Many Hats of Business, the podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Gordon, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. On this podcast, we explore the realities of business and the many hats we have to wear. I'll be speaking to some fantastic business owners about their journey to where they are today, in the hope that they inspire you to go through the tough times so that you get to relish the rewards having your own business can bring. Before we jump in, a quick reminder to subscribe, rate and leave a review if you enjoy what you hear. Your support means the world to us and helps Many Hats of Business, the podcast, reach even more curious minds like yours. Alright, let's get started. Get ready to be entertained, informed and inspired. This is Many Hats of Business, the podcast. Hi Prash, great to have you here with us today. Can you start by telling people a little bit about yourself, please?
Morning, Tanya. Thank you so much for having me here today. Hi everyone, I'm Prash. I am the Heartbreak Healer. I mainly work with mothers who are seeing their children struggle with similar issues that they went through in their childhood or in their lives, and are getting to that point of frustration where everything external, trying to work with people outside, the schools, whatever it is outside, is not quite doing the job. And it's getting to that point of, what more can I do now for my children, for my kids? It's hurt in them, and I want to stop that hurt. And I mainly do that with working with the mothers themselves rather than them focusing on the children, because in my experience, working with so many people, it's always has been, the answers lie inside, and not inside the children, but inside us as parents. And that's what I do.
That's really interesting, isn't it? And I'd imagine in doing what you're doing and speaking to people, it must be fascinating work for you, and to see that transformation in people and the children, where you didn't work with the children, you worked with the parents.
Yeah. It absolutely is. And it's something nobody, well, I shouldn't say the word nobody because it's really like encapsulates everyone, but most people don't realize how much of us is the child mirroring back, is because children learn by watching, by looking at you. They don't learn by doing things that you ask them to do. They just watch you. And it's such an unconscious thing. Like sometimes, I'm sure, Tanya, sometimes you sit there going, you say something or you do something, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, my mum used to do that. That's how my mum used to say it, or my gran used to. It's because it's so unconscious and such a subconscious level that's what happens. And then us not working on ourselves, not trying, because everything that is a negative experience, especially trauma and things like that, is something we want to look away from because it's painful. So that is our safety mechanism, almost, to look away from pain rather than go towards the pain. So by us not trying to look at what could I have done for myself to make heal myself, so that I can then parent from my healed self rather than do an unhealed parenting, we are subconsciously handing everything over to the kids and not even realizing it. And then it becomes more and more frustrating when we look and go, oh yeah, this guy bullied, I talked to the guy for my kids, or I spoke to the school, I changed school, but this thing keeps repeating itself. What is going on? So yeah, it is. And then it's really fun when you watch, and all of a sudden they go, oh, I don't think working on me will help my child. I'm like, just try. You've got nothing to lose. You came to me for a reason. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, so yeah, it's just quite incredible.
Yeah, that penny drop moment, it must be amazing to see.
Absolutely.
And how long have you been doing this? How long have you been in business?
So I unofficially started about 11 years ago. And then I set up my business in 2020. Didn't do anything with it until almost October of 2021. Then it became a bit of a mixed messaging kind of situation, because I was still trying to find, where do I want to work? What do I want to do? Who do I want to work with? And then now finally, it's been, so with this messaging, which is mainly to do with the children and the mothers, or the fathers even, like the parents and the children, is very recent. But all of my work has come since the last 11 years, has come to that place of bringing everything together. And this phase right now is just about clarity. but I still do the same work. So let's say 11 years.
That's a really interesting point, though, that I'd like to bring up with people, because business is an evolution. And I think when people come into business and they decide they're going to start a business, I feel like there's a lot of pressure. And I think some of it is because we instantly compare ourselves to everybody, and everyone's got this Instagram polished life of they're really bossing it. And you see all of the stuff about you've been making £1 million overnight and all of these things. And I think it puts massive pressure on people and puts them on the back burner straight away. And it's really refreshing to hear that, like you say, you were doing the same work, but you hadn't, got a real niche. You didn't know who you wanted to help. So you were, just take the steps and do it along the way, and it will come in time, and it has for you. And what was that feeling like? Did you get a big sense of relief in that you finally could stop thinking about who you wanted to help, but just help them?
It's literally this, Tanya, right? So I think what happens in the business world is we look exactly like you said. We look around, we see all these people doing successful things. We look back, we almost do a time travel with them to their past. And it almost feels like they've been doing the same thing for years. When people turn around and say, oh, I've been doing this for 25 years, 30 years. No, you haven't. You have evolved. You wouldn't do exactly what you did 25 years ago. And also the other thing that happens is like how it happened to me was, I said, oh yeah, I'm working here. I want to do this. Oh no, it doesn't quite sit right with me. It feels like I need to go deeper, and you go deeper. And then you realize you've gone too deep. And then people are literally going, oh no, I don't want to work on that one because it's too hard. It's too difficult. I don't think I have it. So with that, what happens? We are sat there thinking, oh my God, everybody's watching me. I'm making so many changes in my business. Oh my God, people are going to think I'm like fluffy. I don't know what nobody is paying that much attention. We are not that important. What is important is us feeling aligned with the business that we want to do. So that's what happened to me. I went through so much ups and downs, especially not in the business itself, but within myself. There was so much turmoil when I was trying to change. I was like, oh my God, people are going to think, what do you do then? I thought you did this. But realistically, nobody even knew what I did because they weren't paying that much attention. And then all of a sudden now it's like, oh yeah, this is what I do. It's the clarity is 100% needed. But for you to get to the clarity space, if you have to take 100 steps or 1,000 steps, it's fine. Like I said, because social media is so out there and we feel like everybody's watching us, they're not. They don't have that. It's a goldfish thing. They don't have that attention span at all. So they're moving past you like anything. But until the moment when it hits, what you're saying hits them, it resonates with them, and they're like, oh, is this what you do? I'm coming to work with you. So
that's really interesting, isn't it? That you do assume people see everything you post. And actually, I think the stats like 1 in 10 of your posts they see anyway, and everybody forgets this. So realistically, if your messaging is a bit all over the place and it's not necessarily talking to exactly one person, and B, they only see 1/10 of what you say anyway, the likeliness of them really knowing what you do until you're really, really clear on it is like zilch.
And also, when you are really clear on what you do, 90% of the people are not going to care until there's something about what you said or what you wrote or what you did, whatever it is, resonated with them, and they went, oh, let me look at what Prash does or what Tanya does, because that sounded very interesting. And when they do that, if your messaging is clear and they are your clients, they will come to you. So
we touched on messaging beforehand. For the people that don't know, when you apply to come on as a guest on the podcast, you get sent a questionnaire so that you get the feel of, especially before this was live, people didn't obviously know where we were going to go with our conversation. So you get the chance to really see kind of where the conversation's going to go. And I get to see where we could take the conversation as well. So it works really well. But in chatting before that, we were talking through, weren't we, that you work around trauma. And one of the big things that you've had to come through is that thing of when I was going to use the terms trying to sell. Realistically, everyone in business needs to sell something else. You're not in business, but trying to sell, as we were just discussing earlier, once you're doing it right and you're talking about the right thing, you don't even need to try and sell because they do then come to you. But when you were initially doing it, and you said then about going too deep, I guess this is that bit where you were talking around trauma, and people say, some people, oh, well, nothing that traumatic happened to me. Trauma and traumatic is like two different things, isn't it? And people assume that trauma means it had to be really something very traumatic. And a lot of people have had that. But for the people that don't feel that anything traumatic happened to them, like me, for example, you writing about trauma and talking about trauma wouldn't pull me to you, would it? Whereas you saying about your, as a parent, I've got 3 boys, as a parent, you're doing things that might mean it's harder for them. Subconsciously, that's something that makes you sit up and go, oh, yeah, okay, I get that. And I'd be more inclined to look into that. Whereas compared to when you were talking about trauma, so that must have been quite a revelation for you in how you work.
Yeah, it absolutely was. So as we were discussing earlier, what happens is when you use the word trauma, the word in itself has so much meaning into it. And then also everybody seems to think, oh, trauma is something major that happens to you, which is, I'm not discarding that part, but it's not only that. So that's the thing most people don't even know, don't even realize. And when you talk about trauma, when you write about trauma, when you speak about trauma, what happens is those people who already sat there thinking, my life was normal. Everything that happened in my life was normal. I had a normal childhood, normal this. This does not relate to me. I have quite a few of my clients who then came to me for something else, and then when started working, realized, oh, I even did a talk for NHS a couple of months ago, and it was regarding trauma. I was giving the talk, and then in the end, the questions were all like, I didn't know that. Oh, all of a sudden I realized this happened. I am yet to come across anyone who I work with, who I talk to, who I have a proper conversation with, who has not had some form of a traumatic experience. And people tend to forget that. It's not they forget that you don't even realize it. And that's where the clarity of my messaging needed to come. And I needed to turn around and say, are your children like showing these kind of behaviors? Have you been trying everything and it doesn't quite work? It seems to be repeating itself over and over again. If yes, then come and have a chat with me. And that completely changed everything, because I was no longer almost repelling people by using words like trauma, pain, abuse, whatever it is, which made them want to look away, either as their mind said, oh, you know what, let's not go there. It's a safety mechanism. It's a coping mechanism. We're not going to look. Or it felt like, no, none of that ever happened to me. But have a chat, have a conversation. You don't know, because that's what our mind does. It's so good at keeping us alive and keeping us safe that most of the things get almost polished over anyway. So
it's really interesting that. And I think, like, when you say you haven't spoken to anybody that it doesn't apply to, it really is fascinating, and not necessarily in a good way, but it just shows us that you do the work. You obviously deal with people that are in business as well, so I guess what you do helps with their children, but also then their business.
Think of it this way, Tanya, right? Imagine you have a business, it's successful, it's going somewhere, you're doing things, and all of a sudden something happens to your child, whatever it is, and it takes all your mind and focus away from your business into the children. You're trying to make sure they're okay, this, that, blah, blah, blah. And then something happens in your relationship, something happens in your personal life. It all affects the business. I'm not going to turn around and say, work with me and your business will flourish. That's not it. Why? Because I don't work on your business. I don't know what your business is. I don't even need to know what you do. But it's just that if you think about the dominoes effect, it literally, because we are not just one, like Tanya's not just many hats of business and then sat there, that's it, and she doesn't do anything else. She's got a whole life, whole world around her, always prying for her attention, always. And then our kids, and that's what I've said, I think it's on my website where I said, our kids have the ability to break our hearts the most, because they have the power in their hands that anything happens to them and it hurts and it breaks our heart. So yes, that's a very indirect way, but when it happens to any parent, if you talk to them, something happens to their children and the whole world stops, doesn't matter. So imagine the ripple effect it will happen in their business or their work or anything else they're doing. is because the focus is gone. You can't even focus on anything anymore because you need that sorted first.
And then if you are trying to do something like content creation, because a lot of people struggle with that anyway, and you really have to be, you've been working on your messaging to talk to the right people. If you're not in a good space and there's some stuff going on behind the scenes, to sit there and go, I'm going to create really good content that's going to talk to people and then be on social media and be social is very difficult, isn't it? Because social media isn't just about post and run. You have to engage.
Yeah. And also, there's two things to this one, though. One is it'll be very difficult to show up and do what you think you should be doing, like putting out these brilliant posts, and like 90% of the social media is polished anyway. But at the same time, when something like that is happening and you're vulnerable enough, you're okay enough to share and say, something's going on in my life and I'm not quite there yet. Like, I don't think I should even post this, but my heart said do it. So this is what's happening. Not the whole event, obviously, but this is what I'm going through. I'm struggling right now. That also attracts people because people want that authenticity, that authentic you, almost, because it's not true. It's not true that everything all the time is polished. No matter how much work you do, no matter who you work with, no matter how much healing you've done, doesn't matter, because it's not possible, because it's a flat line otherwise. If you are always polished like this, you're dead, because it's a flat line. You need the up and down.
Yeah, you do get the ups and downs. It's funny, a while ago I shared my turnover for over the years to show that like growth as well isn't a straight line. And it was funny because when I looked at it, I could pinpoint dates as to when years didn't go as much and things like that. And it was because things like, oh, I had children, and you take time, you're taking a bit of time out and your focus isn't on it, or I got divorced, or, and then COVID. But it was really interesting to look at it and to be able to kind of pinpoint some of those bits to events that were happening in your life. And you can't ever look at your business totally separate from your life, because like you say, whatever's going on in your life does affect the business. And you can't beat yourself up about what is happening in your business when you're dealing with something bigger, because we're human, aren't we? And we always will be.
Absolutely. And then this is something I watched on Instagram Live a little while ago, and this one thing the person said really, really resonated with me. And they said, we all seem to look at our businesses, especially as businesswomen or businessmen, is we look at our business as a separate entity, almost like that's my business, this is me. But our business is an extension of us, and whatever is holding us back, whatever is affecting us, whatever is going on in our lives, the business will show us first, because it's almost like that soul contract we have with the business, where the business will be like, okay, I'm not going to, let's say, for example, your income is really low. It's because maybe you have blocks in your finances or whatever it is, but your business will replicate, almost mirror what you think about yourself, what you feel about yourself. It's everything that has happened to you in your life. The business almost mirrors it back at you and says, this is working, this is not working. You need to look, but don't look at the business, look at you.
That is really powerful, isn't it? And I can just imagine that work on yourself to go to that deep level. I think some of us, we do stuff on a surface level, myself included, and I'm very aware of things and I'm very self-aware, but some of the stuff you uncover you don't know about because your conscious has covered it up. So you can't possibly be aware enough to see it without that delving deeper.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating when you look at your business, and if you forget that it's a business and look at it as something with a soul or a life of its own, you will see it reflecting back to you. This is where you have issues. For example, in my case, initially when I started, the messaging all over the place, you could see you will see the dips, the highs, the lows, and you sat there going, oh. And then it's not about me going, oh, I need to get my messaging, get my business correct. It's about me sitting back going, what do I want my messaging to be?
Yeah.
What do I want to, what feels aligned? How do I want to work? And when that smooths out. It's really incredible if you really look at it that way.
Yeah, that is brilliant, isn't it? I just think it's one of those really enlightening things for people to like look into deeply. And why did you want to set up your own business?
So to be honest, I think like almost everyone, it was that point of I want to be my own boss, have my own freedom, want to do my own thing, like take time off when I need to. All of that was there. But when I first registered my company with the company house, for me it was like I want to be a business owner, and no, that's it, nothing else. I wasn't interested in anything else. But because I'd been doing the work from so much longer before that, all of a sudden it felt like a viable option. If I am to sell me, for example, to you or say something to you, it's difficult as a person. But when it's a business and you have a message and there is a message you want to go out and give to the world and help people, it's so much easier as a business rather than a personal thing. So that was one of the reasons why when I started looking at the people I'd worked with before as a person, not as a business, and then realizing that how much impact it's having, and I wanted to go for it to go bigger, then I'm no celebrity. So then what do you need? What is the next step that I needed to then be able to say, listen, this is what I do, this is my messaging, was to then need a business. So
yeah, that's really interesting that you felt it was easier to give your message as a business than a person, because it's less, if someone didn't agree with your message, I guess there's less personal attack because it's the business.
Yeah, no, and also it's not only about like the attacks and things like that. My mentor used to give this example a lot, so I'm going to give that. So if you go out into the street just now and say, oh, listen, give me some money, right? To any random stranger, give me a pound, give me a penny, give me 50, it doesn't matter. 99% of the people won't even look at you. And for you as well, it feels like what am I asking for, right? But if you have this hospital charity thing in your hand, let's say a cancer research charity, and you're shaking it, going to people, oh, this is for the charity, give some money. Then people not only give money, you feel good about asking that, right? In a sense that then that's the I thing and the we thing. Charities is a we thing. We want to make a difference. We want to change the world. Let's do something as an us. There's such a big difference between an I and a we, that doing it as a business, a we thing where we help people, we want to do this, this is the message that needs to go out. It's very different to I want to help people, I want to do this. It's almost that.
Yeah, I think that's really good, isn't it? And I think you saying the I and the we thing as well covers some people really struggle with the perceived egotistical side of, like you say, I want to help people do this, I want to help people do that, buy from me. And I know I've worked with people before that struggle with selling, and one of the people I was working with was in financial services and did a lot of mortgage work for people, but always struggled to sell the protection. And that was really interesting for me, because I had her reframe it that you are helping people, because if the worst happens, they have cover for their income or for their house and things like that, that if you haven't sold it them, they haven't got that. So you're not selling them something, you're doing them a favor by giving them, giving them access to a product that's going to alter their life in the worst case scenario. Yes, you don't want to have to use it, but it is interesting, isn't it, that people can be so blocked around selling because they think, oh, I'm selling something. But actually, and it's the same with what you do, you are giving people access to something that's going to alter their life.
Yeah. So I like with the mortgage thing, like you said, it's literally almost like, oh, but I don't want to sell it, but you don't sell it if you don't want to, but at least give people the option if they want to get it. It's not about selling, it's about giving that option out there and saying, this is what happens if you do this, but it's up to you. That's what it is. That's all it is.
Yeah. I mean, but some people get to this block around the fact that they feel like it's selling, and then they don't even mention it. So they're not even putting it out there for that this is available if you want it. Do you feel like your business is doing what you set it up to do, what you wanted it to do?
It finally is starting to, only because now my messaging is quite clear. I know who I want to work with. I know how I want to do it and things like that. So Yes, I would say yes, it is. But it wasn't an easy path to get to where I am today. It could do better. I'm putting it out there that it probably will do better now, because with more clarity, with better messaging, with everything, it will attract the right people. But if anybody is sat there thinking, oh my God, but when will it ever happen to me? Trust me, 11 years. It's 11 years. It's not one and done. And like yourself, I've changed. If I look back at the Prash 11 years ago, I don't recognize her as a completely different person to who I am today. That means with me, my business needed to evolve as well. So it's always an evolution.
That's such a valid point, and it's something I talk about quite a lot. I don't recognize the me from 2020. That's like 4 years ago. It's huge, isn't it? And I think sometimes when people are coming into the journey for the first time, you can't know what you're going to be like in 5 years. So it's very difficult to try and predict that, isn't it? Because, if you look back, and anyone can do this at any point of their life, whether they're a business owner or not, look back to who you were 5 years ago. Do you recognize that person? I hazard a guess, even if you feel like nothing's changed in your life, there's still stuff that when you look back, you think, God, I wouldn't do that now. I'm so different to that. And it's really interesting, isn't it?
It's the growth factor, isn't it? You grow, and with you, the business grows as well. The business changes as well. What you agreed with 10 years ago, 5 years ago, probably you don't agree anymore, because you've had that learning process. You've had different experiences. It's a very different thing to what I'm sure you've done it as well, Tanya. Sometimes when you go to either business event or whatever, they always say to you, okay, visualize yourself 10 years from now. Who are you with? What are you doing? How are you standing? What things are you doing? Yes, have that kind of visualization. Have it in there, but don't expect it to go exactly like that, because the end might be there. It probably will happen, but how you get there is going to be 10 steps back, 2 steps forward, 15 back. So yes.
Yeah, there's no straight line, is there? There's no straight diagonal line up. It just a little curl in the middle there to throw you off. What has been your biggest challenge so far in your business journey? Is it that messaging piece?
Yeah, it is. And then also, without the proper messaging and without the clarity, it did feel like selling. And I'm like I'll say 90% of the people who don't like to sell, because sell is also another word which has this big, intense energy around it. I think it started with the salesman, door-to-door salesman, and the car salesman who made it all icky, pushing sales and things like that. And that's why we always feel like, oh, I don't want to sell. I don't want the person to feel pressurized. I don't want them to think I'm selling to them. But I recently went to this event with Vicky Chisholm, and it was a business networking event. And there, when she said, take the word sell away, because it already has that worldwide negative energy around it, so it probably won't change. Just think of it as an invitation. Invite them to explore, invite them to see what would happen. So my biggest issues with business has definitely been not getting to that point of understanding, with all this experience and knowledge of what do I really want to do. That was a long-term thing. And then because of that, as the hindsight also, it was the sales part that really, but then now they both seem to go quite okay hand in hand.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it, that the combination of those two can make a real difference, can't it? And I think that thing of inviting people to have an opportunity to investigate more what it is you do than selling is really beneficial for people that they're not from a selling background and it doesn't sit right. I think we were talking about it briefly earlier, weren't we, that coming into, and it's one of the reasons I do what I do, people come into business without they're very good at what they do, but they don't have some of the skills they need to be a success in business. Because if you're not from a selling background and the whole thing really gives you the ick, it's very difficult, isn't it, to make any money?
And like we were talking earlier, if you don't sell in your business, then it's just a hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. My business for a really long time was an expensive hobby, because I was spending a lot in trying to learn new things, trying to like almost better myself, make sure I have the relevant knowledge and everything because of the work that I was doing. And in working with trauma, working with people with kids, it's not the easiest thing. You have to be you have to have all that knowledge that's out there to make sure that you're doing the right things, not re-traumatizing them, not making things worse for them. So it was turning into this very, very expensive hobby where you're like, okay, I'm spending this money because I need this, I need this, I need that, I need to do this, I need to learn that. But then there does come a point where you want to stop and say, okay, I think I have, it's very difficult to stop and say, I'm ready, because you're never ready. But then it's also within yourself to have that strength to turn around and say, let me try this first and see, because I can easily learn so many things myself, like go out there, spend the money, learn. But if I'm not putting it into practice and it's not giving me the ROI, then is it really what I want? Or is it just me saying to myself, I want to do this, but I can wait until I'm ready? Because you're never ready. That's been my experience. You're never ready.
And that is a very good point, isn't it? Because we were talking about this on recent episodes. Investing in some of the things can be that excuse of, oh, I'll do this first because then I'll feel ready or be ready. Or once I've learned this, once I've learned that. You only have to be in the on-world space for 5 minutes to realize that there's plenty of opportunity for you to buy different things, to learn different skills, which yes, it's brilliant. Yes, it's valuable, but not if you're using it as then an excuse to stop you doing the thing and actually putting your offers out there, because you haven't got time, because you're so busy learning everything and you think you need to know more before you do it. And obviously, if you felt that in your line of work is particularly difficult, because the professional development is very important, isn't it? To make sure you're doing things in the right way. But some of those business skills, some of that is less important than the actual professional qualifications. It can come later.
Yeah. And also what I would definitely say is most people, when you have, let's say, for example, you've spent money, you're doing this course, just doing a course never changes anything. Just as soon as you start, whatever it is, the program you're doing, start implementing it. And the only way you can implement and apply is if you then start attracting the clients, start working on them. You learn from here, and you know, the easiest way to learn is to teach, almost. So if you're learning this and you're implementing this on this side, you'll gain confidence while you're still gaining the knowledge. And that is the best way to do it.
Yeah, you're right. And also, you've still got the support of the thing that you've bought, haven't you? Whereas you come out, if you wait till you've ended it, and then you're like, well, I'm still terrified to put my offer out there. You're not going to sell it, are you? Because you're not going to put it out.
Exactly.
What would you say has been the best decision you've made in your business?
To start before I felt I was ready. I'm glad we were talking about this for a little while, because I genuinely, when I first set up my business, I only set it up because, I want to have a company, I want to be a business owner, but I was already doing the work as a person for a long time. And none of that time I felt ready. None of that time I felt like I was equipped enough. Even today, with so many certifications under my belt and everything, I still feel like it's not enough, especially because the work I do, the people, the problems, unique people, unique problems, unique issues. And you start there going, oh, I've not dealt with this one before. I've never had a conversation like this before. But then what you do is you just go deep inside and go, it's almost trial and error. You're like, okay, we're going to do this because in my experience, in my expertise, I think this will work. And it does, because it's just a matter of me knowing that, having the confidence in myself. So starting before I even felt like I was ready, I had the things, has been the best thing I ever did.
It's funny because there's some sayings in business that get bad reputation at certain times. And one of the ones I'm thinking of particularly is fake it till you make it. Now, fake it till you make it became known as a, like fake that you know what you're doing, fake your service and get people to pay you for something that you don't know what you're doing. And to me, it's never meant that. To me, fake it till you make it means fake the confidence to do it, fake that you're comfortable, that trick yourself into putting something out there and doing it, because your comfort zone will expand. When you start doing it, you become comfortable. You can't be confident and comfortable on day one of something. But if you start doing it, before you know it, actually, you're feeling quite comfortable in it.
Yeah. So for me, fake it till you make it is, when everybody says, oh, this person's an expert on this, everybody is an expert in a topic or a field that you work in. And I'm saying this out there straight, because when you're in a room full of people where let's say, for example, in my case, I know a lot about trauma. I've done so much work into it. I know a lot about parenting. I've done so much work into it. I understand the ins and outs of how our brain and our mind works, and even the connection, mind-body connection, where something traumatic or an event happens that blocks the connection. But I know so much about it. I go into a room. I am an expert in that field because I've put my life, my soul, my heart into it to learn about it. Doesn't mean I am the expert, but I am an expert. So that's what you need to take with your business. Whatever you are doing in your business, if you can go into a room and talk to people about that particular thing, you are an expert.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And I think it is something that some people just massively struggle with, don't they? Because they hear the word expert and assume that means you've got to be the expert of the world, or, know so much more than other people in that field. But actually, they're your peers. And realistically, you would like to think you're all of a similar level, because you want them to be professional as well, don't you? That they know what they're doing.
How can you be an expert in a field, like the topmost expert in a field? How you put in the work when you're not ready, and you've learned, you think the experts didn't make mistakes? They made massive mistakes. You make the mistakes, you learn, you grow, you carry on. That's what makes you an expert. And that's when they go higher and higher up in that field, because it's not because of what they've learned. It never is, because there's not that many new things to learn in this world. It's all been said, it's all been done. But the experiences that they had, the failures that they had, is what made them an expert, because once they failed, they knew what not to do. And I think that's the most important thing in business, is to know what not to do. And that doesn't come from success. That doesn't come from your expertise. That comes from making mistakes and failing.
Yeah, and that's really interesting as well, isn't it? We always compare ourselves to people. It's really natural. And when we do it, we're never comparing ourselves to someone at the same point. We're looking at that person so many steps ahead and comparing ourselves to them. But that isn't where they started. And then, of course, not many people put out all their failures. And even if they're putting out some, it's not all of them. So you're not seeing all of those learning points that they had to get to where they are. So it does make it very difficult, doesn't it, for people coming in new to say, oh, okay, I'm going to just sit and be comfortable with where I'm at and see what evolves and just keep putting stuff out there. But inherently, we try to protect ourselves, don't we? You know a lot about this, and like to try and protect you, you're going to protect yourself from that, because it's so difficult to put stuff out and go, okay, this might fail, but I'm okay with that because I'm going to learn from it, because you still feel like you've just put this out into the big wide world, and your friends will see it, your parents will see it, and everyone will see it, and you instantly feel that people are going to think that you failed and it's a bad thing, or you create a narrative in your head that doesn't serve you.
Yeah, it's like we are so scared of people judging us. And it's normal. It's normal, because as humans, we want to be accepted. We want to belong. We want to be a part of a community. And judgment comes from that negative place. But like we said in the very beginning of this conversation, when the conversation started, those who are judging really, like the near and dear, like the closest ones, who are like, oh, why are you leaving your job and starting a business? What if it fails? Oh, yeah, the job gives you pension, this, that, blah, blah, blah. We need to block, not like block them as in people, but block what they're saying out. But apart from that, nobody else is sitting there going, oh, yeah, okay, Prash, today you did this. Ugh, you don't know what you're doing. Oh, tomorrow you tried something new again. You don't know. Nobody is doing. Only people who are judging us is us. Only people who sat there saying, is our brain. It's the negative, the negative Nelly inside your head going, you don't know what you're doing, you're stupid, you'll fail. Look at all these people around you who are doing brilliantly. And all those people who are doing brilliantly have their own negative Nelly saying, you're stupid, you're fake, you're doing this. It's just, we just need to understand that these things, they like to isolate us in the name of keeping us safe. But we just need to sit there and say, you know what, I'm going to try it anyway. If I fail, if people judge me, fine, I'll just cover my head for a couple of months and then it will be a thing of the past. Imagine all these big things that's happening to celebrities, right? Like the thing that came into my mind just now was Amber Heard and Johnny Depp thing. Mm-hmm. Imagine how big it was. Everyone was invested, this, that. Nobody is talking about it. Nobody cares. If that is what happens with people's attention to them, they don't care about me. I could fail like 1,000 times. They still wouldn't know that I failed 1,000 times, but I would have learned.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? And I think it's that feel the fear and do it anyway. I did open water swimming the other day.
Yeah,
and I was terrified at this big, horrible, deep quarry with fish and divers. And, you know, the worst thing, I was dreading that, like, a fish had touched my foot or something, I'd feel it. But interestingly, I didn't think about fish really when I was there because there were divers under there. And I thought, if someone comes up just near me, I am going to, like, die because the shock will kill me. And, you know, I survived and I enjoyed it. And yes, I was terrified and really nervous. I felt sick on the way there, but I did it anyway, because if you want something, you got to go towards those goals, regardless of how horrible and scary it feels at the time, because you're not going to get the goal if you don't feel the fear and do it anyway.
If you don't even take the steps and don't even try, you're always going to fail. But if you do take the steps and do try, do give it your best, do try and see where it leads you, all of a sudden you might actually realize that's not the goal you want. Your goalposts changed. But it's okay. You're at least moving forward.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the things, I talk about it a lot, the goalposts do change. And that's why, you know, it's difficult in business, because one of the things I often struggle with is celebrating my achievements along the way, because you do something and then the goalposts have moved. Or like in that thing of the business evolution, it's never finished. So, you know, like for me, I launched a podcast and I was so proud of doing that. But equally, there's still work to do because there's still more episodes to record. There's still, you know, editing to do on the ones that you have recorded. So even in that first week of like, oh my God, I've got a podcast, I was still able to forget to celebrate because there's work to do. And I think it doesn't matter what you're doing in business, that's always going to be the case.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would say I'm exactly the same. I forget to celebrate. I forget the small wins. And then all of a sudden, when there is no big win, you're sat there going, oh, but I didn't achieve anything. I didn't do anything. I'm such a failure. But hello, let's look at the smaller ones that you did do to get all the way here. In this world where people have zero attention span these days, let's say 20 people viewed my very first reel, for example. Oh my God, I did reach the 20 people. And the next time the 20 will be 40, 60, 80, thousands, millions, when everybody is trying to go viral these days. Oh, I want millions of views. Oh my God, that can be the goal. But that doesn't mean you don't celebrate the 100 people who watched it. Because if you think of it in a physical level, right? If I'm in a room in front of 100 physical people sitting there, it's a freaking big deal, right? That is a big achievement. I'd shout out from the rooftops, I did this in front of 100 people. So why 100 people viewing my reels is not enough? Why am I not celebrating that? Why? Because others are getting millions? Fine, so is Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is getting millions and millions every time when he does it. I am not Tony Robbins. Yeah, the 100 people in the room was a big deal for me. We need to change the narrative a little bit. Yes, I want to go viral. Everybody does. Yes, I want more people to see that. But it has to start somewhere. We're forgetting that somewhere. We're just looking at everybody around us and going, I want to get there. Why can't I have that? Oh my God, when they started, they were getting 20 views too.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? Do you have any set routines that you follow to help you in your business or to help your motivation? Because I'm of the mindset that no one can be 100% motivated all of the time. And that's why consistency can massively help, can't it?
Yeah. the routines for me, so it fluctuated a lot. Like, there's so many things people say, oh, have a gratitude diary, have this, have that. I did it, and then it fluctuates, and then I do it again, and then it fluctuates. But now I've really started sitting down with my journal first thing in the morning when I wake up. And it has made a big difference, because it is so true when people say our businesses is normally reactive, right? The moment I pick up that phone, I'm always reacting to someone else, something else. So I've started not touching my phone first thing in the morning. And I just sit, I get up, I do my things, and then I go back, sit down, and then I journal. Just like maybe sometimes for 5-10 minutes. Sometimes it flows and it goes for a bit longer, but it has really started helping me, because it's almost like I put down my fears into that journal, like almost like, oh, but I'm scared of this. And then the thoughts that come, the feelings that come when you started writing that journal has actually given me next steps is into like, try it this way, which is incredible, because all our lives we look for, especially in business. And if you've never done a business before, if you've never established a business before, what we try is look for someone else to come and save the business for us. Look for someone else to come and hold on to our hands and go, oh, do this instead. This is the next step, right? But it has to come from here. And that has started really helping me. And that's been my routine for a little while now. And I just love it.
That's really, really helpful for people, isn't it? And what you said about you tried other things first, because it is about finding what works for you, isn't it? Because it's great that people give us this information and we can like try different things. But just because something works for someone doesn't mean it necessarily works for you. And it's like some people like to journal at the end of the day, and like you're doing it in the morning. And it is about going, okay, well, like for me, I have to take the kids to school and things like that. And then sometimes I get stuck in. Is there that time that I could go, okay, well, I'll do this? Or, okay, well, maybe I could do it at the end of the day and things like that. So it is that thing of making something work for you. And it, like you say, you're looking outside of you for people to come and save the day and help. But actually, look at what you can do for yourself and how you can make it work for yourself to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you know her, Shari Thompson. She is my human design coach, and I'm doing the certification with her. And she does say it all the time. She feels like should be taken out of the dictionary or our verbiage, because we are always doing what we think we should be doing. There is no such thing as you should be doing something. Right? You should be doing it in the morning. You should be waking up 5 o'clock in the morning doing that. No shoulds. You do what goes well with your day, and it flows into your day, because that's what will make it easier to do, and that's what will make you want to do it. If you sit there going, oh, I'm a night owl. I don't go to bed before midnight, sometimes 1 a.m, but I can't wake up too early in the morning. So if someone turned around and said to me, you should be waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and doing this, I'd slap him, because I can't. I would not function at 5 o'clock in the morning. So there is no shoulds.
And I certainly wouldn't be functioning by 2 o'clock in the afternoon if I had functioned this. Yeah.
Exactly. So.
Yeah. I'd be asleep when I was supposed to pick my kids up from school.
Exactly.
No, that's absolutely brilliant. And thank you so much. What I really love to leave people with on this is a book recommendation, because, whilst we've said the answers are in you, I love that absorbing information. So is there anything you recommend people read?
So when someone asks for book recommendation, I always give them the book Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch. It has nothing to do with religion, and it also definitely doesn't have anything to do with business. But that is one book that saved my life when I was in a very dark, depressive state. The book that almost made me want to get up and do something about my life, do something with what I have here. So I always recommend that book. And yeah, so that would be my recommendation. Conversations with God, Part 1 by Neale Donald Walsch.
That sounds like a really useful book that everyone should read. And it's have it on your bookshelf, isn't it, as well, for like being able to go to at a time where you need it, because these things come up at various points in our life, don't they, where you're just suddenly having this struggle. And it sounds like a great book to read. I'm going to add it onto my list.
Amazing book. Amazing book.
And it's funny, isn't it? You said it got nothing to do with God, and it sounds exactly like it would have. And obviously, yes, I assumed it wouldn't be business related. One of the things that I think is very important for us as business owners is that personal development piece. And, it's interesting because a lot of people are doing CPD accreditation for their courses and things now. But actually, once you're a business owner, nobody's checking your CPD unless you're in an industry where you have to cover a certain amount of CPD. But it is really important, isn't it, for us to do that and to keep moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certifications and things like that. It's not only you do it to cover your back almost, but it's also because when you do that, it gives you that little bit of a different confidence, like, oh, I've done this. I know what I'm talking about. I've learned from someone who knew more than me, and I'm putting it into practice. So, yeah.
But that's why with things like this, it's more that learning more about yourself, isn't it? And being able to help yourself when you need that help because you've read something that can teach you that. So that's where I particularly like it. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to put your links below so that people can come and find you and follow you as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today, Tanya. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Many Hats of Business, the podcast. Your support means a lot to me. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your business friends as they may find it useful too. If you hit the follow button, you'll be first to know when a new episode lands. See you next time.